Hi everyone, welcome to today's Hatton's Model Railway SkillsCast, where I show you how to change your layout into a fully functioning model railway. This is one of the many skills that you can learn, and you can check out more on our YouTube channel or Facebook page. But today we're looking at back scenes. This really does help set the scene of a layout and continue where your layout board finishes, where you may only be able to fit a foot or two of depth of detail into a normal layout. A back scene such as this can be added to give a real depth of field, with scenery looking like it stretches on for quite some distance behind your layout. There's a couple of different ways of attaching them, and there's quite a few back scenes out there, so I'll be covering both methods today and giving you some top tips and suggesting which method may be the best for you. As ever, I've got a couple of tools to hand here too, and I'll be showing you some close-up images of how to fit them onto a suitable back scene material, such as wood or a foam plastic board too. So if you've got any particular questions, please do ask them in the chat throughout the stream, and I'll make sure I answer as many as I can. But first of all, have a look at the link in the description for some of the back scenes that we do offer. They come in a variety of shapes and sizes, mainly stretching between 5 to 10 feet by about 9 to 12 inches, depending on the height of the back scene you want to recreate. And they come in various different guises too. This is a country scene, and then heading into a more modern suburban scene, as you see here. You'll notice that the three images do join together too. So you can expand or grow a layout as much as you want. Some of the models that we do have and the back scenes available come in 4 product sections, so you can actually stretch right up to 40 feet if you wanted. And of course you can add further back scenes onto that to go from any distance. So you can have them on a small layout, or you can have them on a really big layout to help create that illusion that your railway is running through a full scene, with the scenery stretching in some cases miles into the background. So there's 2 main types available. You can either buy the paper type, which we're going to cover first, and then you can buy some of the premium models which come with the self-adhesive backing, which it is a little bit easier, but it's also a little bit more expensive. So we'll be covering that towards the second part of the stream. Now, as we see here, each back scene comes in a roll, and then that will be rolled out. Usually they come in 2 or 3 different sections, as again you can see here on the Gauge Master product. This is 3, I believe they're about 3-foot sections individually, but they do work out to give you a total of around 10 feet in length. And as you'll be able to see, this then is rolled out along whatever material we wish to use for our back scene to support it. So I would recommend something, as we've got here, some 6mm MDF. Anything around that should do you absolutely okay. So 6mm MDF, 6mm ply. Some people can use foam board too, and if you're using it somewhere that doesn't have a lot of changes in temperature, that's something to really explore. But otherwise, have a look at the back scenes in wood, and of course we have our own Hatton's Precision's back scenes on the way too as a suitable material. So if you are if you're choosing the paper option, shall I say, this comes, as you can see it here, as a rolled up photographically printed back scene. All the details that you see here on this sheet are pre-provided, so you don't need to do any painting, colouring in, or adding to the scene that you see in front of us here. This is then attached in a similar but not quite the same way as attaching wallpaper to a wall. We have a very specific glue for this, which is available right now. This is the back scene glue, made purely for putting it on. The reason behind this is it's a great glue for not having any of the kinks or bubbles that we wouldn't want on the back scene. We really want to make sure this is as flat as possible when it goes on. So if we were putting that one on, you would have a full covering of the glue. Again, as with a lot of the glue coverage that we have out there, we'd use it quite sparingly, but make sure a lot of the board is covered. You can use a paintbrush or an old brush that you have to hand to put the glue onto the back scene there. So we'd cover most of the back scene, including the edges, so we didn't have any frays. But in the middle, we can leave quite a lot of that clear. It doesn't need every single centimetre to be covered, as long as you have your edge areas. As for how much to do at once, I would do about 6 to 8 inches at a time, just to make sure that when you start off on one edge of the board, you've got it absolutely straight and you are heading in the direction that you wish. So you'd put down a little bit, make sure that's absolutely smooth. You'd maybe want to just roll this out a little further and keep it supported. You can make sure that's smooth by putting over an old cloth or a piece of tissue, as you see here, and just making sure that is super spread down when you are putting it on. And then if we'd have put the glue on there, that would have fully secured it down. We then put a bit more glue down and keep rolling and gluing and rolling and gluing and rolling and gluing until we have covered the length that we desire. Don't cover the whole thing in glue at once. You'll find that a lot of it down the far end will dry by the time you get there. And if you have started laying the glue and the backscene in a slightly wrong direction, you'll find that it's a lot harder to take up and more likely to get the kinks. So do start with just a little panel as we see here. Keep the rest rolled up, a little bit more glue down, work in stages. Cover it down and down and down and down until we get the full covering as per so. And that's how to do it if you want to go down the glue method with the paper backscenes that are available. The majority of backscenes that we sell are those paper backscenes, including the Gauge Master and the Pico Scenic variations, and a lot of the ID backscenes models that are out there too. But we do have a premium range as well. Should you not wish to use the glue, or should you wish to make things a little bit easier for you, have a look at the premium backscenes that are available. Again, all the links to all of these backscenes and the glue are available in the description. And these differ slightly in that they have a self-adhesive background and they also have full protection on the front. They have a little bit of a coating on there to not have as many issues with scratches on there, and they are a bit more scratch resistant and water resistant on there too. So as you can see, I'll just peel that away. Just make sure I can grab that. It's one of those things it's quite hard to do if you've not really got fingernails, unfortunately. But then you'll peel away the adhesive backing. There we go, just about got it. The adhesive backing then does come away, and then this is very sticky indeed, so we make sure that this is exactly as we want it. Peel away a couple of inches or so, and then tuck that underneath, and we'll put that straight onto our board. Just again, making absolutely certain that that is completely and utterly in line as we want it to be. So I'll just put that down on there. And then we will stick down the first couple of inches. And this is a bit of a technique here now, guys. So I'll show you on the bigger camera. So we've got that first couple of inches secure. You'll see that there's a little bit of an overflow. We've had this wood cut specifically to the size of the back seam, but with these, you do have a little lip on them just to make sure you've got a little bit of the edge if you need it. We'll just make sure that's absolutely flat as we require it. And then we pull out from underneath the plastic, which then gives you access to the sticky back of the back seam. And then just very slowly we work down again in sections there, just making sure that's completely smooth. Pull a little bit more. Again, pushing towards just to make sure there's absolutely no ripples or issues in that. We're making sure that's completely flat. And then pulling along a little bit more and a little bit more. Obviously, I'm rushing this a little bit for today's video. Do take a little bit more time on this. I would really do it with some precision. But you can see there now that we do have the makings of our adhesive board. And this is a similar finish you'll get from when you've applied the glue if you are using the paper boards too. And what you'll find with some is you'll have some little edges. As you can see there, we've just got a couple of little edges that overlap, just due to the size of the board that we do have. Now, you can either tuck those in under your baseboard, should you wish, You can fold them right down on the corners and hide them away, like so, because they are still adhesive on the bottom. Or you can get a craft knife or a really sharp, and you will need a really sharp pair of scissors to be able to cut those and just tidy them up, tidy up the edges, and make sure your back seam is complete. So once you've done that, as you'll see, this can come off, but I really wouldn't recommend it once it's down. I would recommend it staying down and just again giving it a good firm rub over, either with your hands or a bit of tissue, just to make sure there's no ripples in there. Mainly working from one side to the other to push the air bubbles out of that too. And you have the start of a back seam there. It does need a little bit of tidying up on the edges. As you can see here with the one I prepared before the stream, this is one I've tidied up a little bit. You can just see the edges of the other back seam coming through the bottom there. But this is one that I prepared just before we went on air. And as you can just see that it is easy to scratch this. So make sure you've got no sharp tools to hand near it. But otherwise then, that is your back seam ready to go. You can mount that on the back of your board. And if you are using some wood, it is recommended to use a little bit more on the bottom so you can mount that onto the back of your layout. But immediately then you can see how that adds a little bit more depth to a railway. If you put a little bit of track in front, you'd have your scenery running up to the back seam then and being included with that too. And then all it takes is just for you to trim off very carefully the edges, as we mentioned before, either a sharp pair of scissors or a craft knife. I would recommend a craft knife rather than a pair of scissors. And then I'll only do a small bit of that because that can take a little while. But then that adds a full seam to the back of your layout. And then you would add the further boards as you wished, and they'd all join on together with the additional scenery on the back. So that's all there is to it. Whichever way you use, whether it is the premium method with the adhesive, the self-adhesive papers, or you use the paper sheets themselves in the different styles, and then you have them with the view glue. As long as you're sticking it down and you're making sure it's stuck and stays, that is the best way to do it. You don't need to add anything else to this then. It is purely ready to go. And as you can see on the images that we had originally, these are designed to be put on in sections. You'll usually find that they're about 4 or 5 pieces long, and you can cut them up as you wish. This piece of wood I have in front of me here is just under 2 feet long, but they do stretch to 5 feet long in some cases on the individual sheets. So if you wish to cut it to a certain size, that is something you can do. If you have a smaller board than a 4-foot section, or they do stretch out, or indeed if you have a board join in there too, you can cut them down the middle and then apply them on either end of that. So it doesn't have to be a specific width, but do make sure you check out the dimensions of the depth of the board. With this being a 9-inch version, the wood's just cut just over 9 inches, so there's a couple of little bits on the sides. But then with the 12 and the 15-inch versions, make sure that you've got the right amount of depth. Otherwise, you'll have a little bit of wood at the top, or maybe not enough wood to cover the whole of the back seam. But otherwise, the length is down to you. And as we mentioned earlier in the video, the depth of the wood I'm using here is 6 millimeters. As long as you use something like that, or indeed some of the foam, the stronger foam plastic board that you can get out there, you'll find it absolutely fine for putting these onto your layout. But as we can see, that's on there with absolutely no issues now. Just after the stream, we'll need to do a little bit of tidying up along the edges, as would you if you were putting one of these together. But it's pretty much ready to go onto our layout. And we'd mount it on the back. We'd build the scenery up. We'd put some of our grass block down, or maybe a station, whatever you wanted to put there. And then that would really set off the scene, especially if that stretched on for the whole continuation of our layout. So do have a look at the range that we have available. We have either the premium models, as you see here, or we have the paper that you apply with the view glue. All the back seams come with full instructions discussing everything that I've mentioned today, and some other top tips in applying these back seams too. the guys and girls who designed these back scenes know how to put them on better than anyone. So some of the tips in there really are some masterclasses on how to get these absolutely perfect onto your layout. But otherwise, I hope I've inspired you to take a closer look at these particular back scenes. There are so many variations available. If you take a look on the link in the description, there's a huge amount of them available. Malcolm there's asked for a canal back scene. I'm not sure if we've got one of those off the top of my head, but we have various different scenes that you can find. There's mountain scenes on there too. And of course, popular scenes that we see here in front of me, such as the Hills and Dales pack, industrial sites for modern image modelers, and there's some great opportunities there, whether you are 00, N-gauge or O-gauge. These are really appropriate for putting onto your layout. So I hope I've inspired you to take a closer look. If you are inspired, take a look at that link in the description or watch back this video to find out just how to get these onto a board. If you do like the look of them, or if you want to find out more knowledge on your layout and want to learn more skills, do check out our YouTube and Facebook channels, and don't forget to like and subscribe them too for more videos, including more SkillsCast sessions showing you some of the basics of transforming your layout into a model railway. Otherwise, I hope you've enjoyed today's session, and I will see you again soon. Thanks, guys. Take care.